Master Your Mindset Radio, episode 126.
Welcome to Master Your Mindset Radio, the show where we empower you to discover your true self before the world told you differently. Now for your host, Elizabeth Nader.
Hi, my friends. I am back with you. I took a bit of a break and it was a great summer. Just did so many other things, and now we are back in the swing of fall, and I wanted to get back in the habit of speaking to you and just sharing with you things that are on my mind from a mindset standpoint. So today I've been thinking about the word identity because it is out there all the time. What do you identify as? What is your identity? He or she identifies as whatever. It's just been talked about ad nauseum, really, to a large degree. But it got me thinking, what is our identity and why does it matter? And then I thought about my upbringing in the church and how I often heard that our identity is in Christ, is in God, that God designed us in His image. So that is our identity. And I thought, yeah, that's what I believe. I guess I don't always think about my identity, but it is something that we actually are really walking out every day. We make decisions from our identity. We approach the world from our identity. So it's kind of crucial that we understand what it is. And I found an interesting way of looking at identity. And it's really taking the concept of identity as a whole and breaking it into three sections. Imagine a circle with two circles within it. Imagine that in your mind. And if you do that, you would see this outward circle, which we're going to call your given identity. And then the next circle inside of that is your chosen identity. And the next circle inside of that is your core identity. So I want to talk about why that is important, how that differentiates from each other, and how you can start to think about who you really are and understanding what those three aspects of identity mean. So the first part of that, these concentric circles, the outside part, is called your given identity. Now this is information about ascribed characteristics, things you had no choice about. They include traits that you received at birth, your name, your nationality, where you were born, your race, your sex, your gender. I'm going to say that because I believe it's biologically assigned. Your personality, your height, the color of your hair. There's so much that you don't pick, that you had no choice about. That's part of that given identity. It's what God put in you in terms of like physical characteristics, biological characteristics, and also the family you're born into, therefore the culture you're born into, where you're born geographically, all of that. So that's your outside of the circle. That is the given identity. Then there is your chosen identity, which is the second ring going towards the center. Now, the chosen identity, by the very word chosen, right? The other one was given, meaning someone gave it to you, that being God, and then your parents gave you a name. But chosen identity implies you chose it. So what can you control? What choices can you make? The skills that you have, that you work on and you turn into talents. So those are things like choosing your career, choosing your occupation, choosing your religion. What hobbies are you interested in? What political affiliation do you have? Who do you hang out with? Who are your friends? What is your relationship status? What do you choose to do? That is part of your identity and who you are, but those are choices that you make. Again, those are things that you can have impact directly on. And then if we keep moving to the center and the core, it's called core identity. That is the innermost ring. What is that? Those are those qualities that make you unique from the standpoint of really deeply held beliefs. So it sort of lines up with the way I look at mindset and your subconscious and your spirit and your heart, that your core identity are those things, that values and deeply held beliefs that affect your behaviors, that affects the way you look at the world. It's part of your identity, but it's really deeply held and it's at the core of who you are. So it's very much an analogy with where we have the deepest part of mindset that I've talked about so many times. So those are deep-seated beliefs that, and for the most part, they remain constant. But of course, we know over time they may change based on things you experience and choices you make that may begin to change those deeply held beliefs and sort of that core identity of who you are. So when we think about that, we can start to understand what makes up our identity. But it's so important that we know our identity. I want to give you an interesting story that someone pointed out to me the other day. In Genesis, when Eve is challenged by the serpent, she actually does not have a name yet. She doesn't. Go back and read it. At the point in the story, God had created a helpmate for Adam, and they called her woman. That's it. Didn't give her a name, but she was ascribed as a woman. So that was part of her given identity, but no name. So she didn't really have much beyond that and really wasn't understanding who she was when the serpent came to her. She didn't even have a name. She was just formed out of Adam's rib, and she was a woman. So what's interesting about that is the challenge to your identity, or challenge to you, comes when you don't know your identity or you don't have depth of identity. So the serpent chose her, and she had no name. She had no sense of identity beyond being a woman. So she really was vulnerable to him and to his lies because she didn't have an anchor of who she was, presumably without a name and without really understanding who she was at a deep level. I believe that she was more easily swayed by lies. It's interesting to me that he would come to her in that state. And after she believed his lies, and after they consumed the apple, and all the things happened that you know, if you know the story, of course, then after that, Adam named her. He named her Eve. But it was after the fall, not before the fall. So I don't know how much influence that has. I always think it's interesting, though, the way stories are told in the Bible. They're told purposefully, in order, for certain reasons. So the fact that she did not have that core identity and idea of who she was beyond being a woman at that point when she was challenged with a lie is interesting to me. And I would say to you that if you don't know who you are in your core, if you haven't made strong choices, if you're not really understanding who you are and pursuing that, if your identity is not strong, then I say that you will easily be led astray. You can easily believe lies. You can easily be led down the wrong path because you don't have a strong sense of who you are. It doesn't mean that a strong sense of who you are prevents you from trauma or prevents you from challenges or hard situations. That's not true. But a strong sense of who you are allows you to overcome things more easily. It allows you to say no in the face of evil or danger or a lie. Allows you to identify what is truth and what is a lie. And I think that's really crucial. So we can understand identity however we want to, but isn't it interesting right now how that is being attacked in this world? How identity is being attacked, and that children are confused, and that confusion is being stirred up by forces that may not be really out for the best, for good for these children. That this battle of good versus evil seems to have identity in the mix. I think that means something. So think about it. First, your identity should be in God. You were created in his image, and that really should give you everything. But beyond that, you've got the given identity, what you choose and what you believe, and it's all part of you. You need to have a firm grasp on it. And when people try to challenge your identity, you say, no, I know who I am. And that's a problem we have right now, is that people don't know who they are. And that's why there's so much swirling around this concept of identity. And I think this isn't going away anytime soon. And it's a challenge to us, and especially those who are raising children, to make sure we are rooted in the right identity, and that no matter what comes our way, that we can fall back on that and say, no, I know who I am. Right now, I may be stressed, I may be confused, I may be under pressure, I may be having a lot of things come at me, but I know who I am. And that keeps me from questioning the very core of my nature and the very core of my identity. I don't have to question it, because no matter what comes my way, I've already decided who I am, and I know who I am. So think about that. Do you know who you are at your very core? Is your identity secure? And if not, go to God and ask him what you need to do about that. But don't believe what the world says. Don't believe that the world says, well, if you're confused, if you're not happy, if you're all these other things that are making you feel uncomfortable, change your identity. Really? Are you sure? Are you sure about that? What is your identity in the first place? Because there is a God who made you in his image, and he wasn't confused. He's never confused. So think about it, pray about it, meditate about it. But in any case, life and the way we experience it is very much based on who we believe we are and the strength of our identity. So that's a challenge for you today. Happy to be back, guys. We will talk to you soon. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Master Your Mindset Radio. Before you go, please visit ElizabethNader.com to learn more about the Mindset Maven and how she is guiding high performers to map their mindset to their message so they can effectively express who they are and why their ideas should win. Looking forward to seeing you online.